You're listening to the RM Podcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. Keith is always getting dressed right at the beginning of the show. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host, John Sebastian. And America. Oh, he's already busted it open.
America.
Oh, yes,
because
thank you.
It's Oktoberfest, even though these aren't Oktoberfest beers.
Well,
still,
exactly. We can always celebrate a good beer
for Oktoberfest, and it's American, even though it's.
We got to thank our good buddy Jacob who brought these in.
Yes,
he literally hand delivered these tonight.
He did.
That's crazy.
Neil paid people to deliver to us, and they failed. Jacob said, "I'm doing this myself." He was like Thanos. He said, "I'm doing this myself."
He chose the American way.
I like.
He said, "Innovation is key." And I'm going to innovate, and I'm going to deliver these beers myself.
He did, because he
brought back real service.
You don't have any 3D glasses, do you? Because this label's actually in 3D.
Oh, is it? Oh, you got to show it. Yeah.
If you have the red and blue glasses,
it looks like it would work.
That would work.
It'd be really cool. Here's the thing: you mentioned him being American. Well, he did have his daughter Reagan in the back, so he was He's like, I have Reagan and beer, and we're
named her after the greatest president we've ever had.
I think so.
Oh.
I think that
he
that
wanted
was exactly
a presidential name, and Melissa
named
didn't like any of them, but she was okay with Reagan. So
he actually changed his profile pic to him in the oval.
Yeah,
did you see that?
I saw that.
He's taking over.
He's gonna run.
It seems that the
I saw that
the man
he
that
might
is
be taking you on as vice president. I just like to be press secretary.
We're gonna try to bring peace.
I'm gonna give it to the media. I just want to be press. He could be president, you could be vice, but I want to be press secretary.
I think we're fine with that.
Vice.
I'm okay with you delivering our mean tweets.
They're gonna come out and they're gonna be like, so why is President Burris? Because he can. Shut up.
He brought us beer. I like beer. That's
exactly what I'm doing.
Hey, pass the can opener. or the bottle opener. I want to open it.
Pass it around.
What do you have now? You got to name the flavor.
Well, were we all gonna give it a try? Each one.
He wanted us to.
This one is the Gimme Some of That, which is a brown ale. Okay, it does on there. I just can't read. Apparently, it's a brown ale with coconut, chocolate, and caramel. So
coconut, chocolate, and caramel.
It smells amazing.
If the coconut is masked enough, I may like it. I'm not a huge fan of coconut. Sean,
I'm not a stout guy.
Well, it's not. It's a brown ale. This is really good. This is like a nice dessert beer.
The blackberry Macron.
This is not a stout.
No, I was going to say, explain. There's two stouts, and one of them is an
ale. No. These are both. This is a brown ale.
Okay.
I thought because of the flavors it'd be a stout, but then I just read the bottle and it says brown ale.
Well, that tells you right there.
It smells like wine.
Well, it's a fruit ale.
I ain't gonna lie. The picture on the front kind of made me realize.
See,
or made me think of Manischewitz.
I like fruit ales and meads. So
brings back bad memories.
If you don't like it, I probably. Well, this is a really good dessert type beer. Like it has a nice sweetness.
What about
really
you,
good.
Sean? What do you think?
Very, very fruity.
Fruity.
You want to pass the bottles around and pop?
Hold on. I haven't. It's open. I haven't tasted.
We'll all go.
I like it. It's very light.
Go this way,
that blackberry ale is very light.
Very light. Pass yours over.
I like my oatmeal. I want this one back.
Okay. But you got to pass them around.
Sean, here you go. You take a sip of that one.
Gosh. Right. Jacob, this is for you.
Oatmeal.
I've got the coconut.
Now I have the blackberry.
Oatmeal stout.
They're trying theirs. And I've got the coconut.
Ooh, that is good. Nice blackberryness to it. I still like that one better. That is good.
I dig it. Even with the coconut.
It's a nice dessert type beer. Like it tastes it does have a sweetness to it.
It's almost like chocolate.
Now, we've all been vaccinated.
No, we haven't.
Hey, natural immunity. Okay?
I didn't say who hadn't. I just said no, we hadn't.
I didn't describe how we were vaccinated.
Now, that smells like a vanilla. It says, caramel.
Oh, man.
Caramel.
All three of these
really
are great.
Good. Man, that
Jacob, you picked some winners.
Amazing. These are all really good.
You know, honestly, I think this blackberry Macron, it beats.
I'm good with any of them, so whichever ones you all like
I don't
the
like
most.
that one.
You didn't like that one, okay.
Oh, you didn't like the
coconut,
the
brown
oat
coconut.
Oh, the coconut.
Yeah.
The macaron. This reminds me of.
Well, you two fight it out unless you want this one.
No,
but-
here you go.
Okay.
I don't. I
We're
want
going
the
back to what we
oatmeal.
originally had. So he wants the oatmeal. Here's your
Okay,
blackberry.
all right, I'll take that. That's fine. You know I like fruity stuff.
Well, I
anyway.
was gonna say this.
I'm a little fruity.
I think here's the funny thing is
You don't have to tell me twice.
we randomly divvied them out, but the ones we started with are the ones each of us liked the best, and that's what we ended up with anyway. So it was meant to be.
It worked out.
I do
but
like that,
I
yeah.
will say I like that better than the summer shandy.
The oatmeal's not bad. Now, I don't
Yeah.
like it better than the summer shandy.
I do.
And
Yeah,
I don't
that-
like it better than just a straight up blue moon.
That's actually
but-
a kind of a mild stout. It's not very strong, but it's good. The oatmeal stout, like it's not. Very
I was going to
strong.
say that's
Yeah.
all of these are kind of mild mannered in
Yeah.
terms of their taste. They're not overpowering, which
Yeah.
is the right kind of
Yeah.
balance I think you would want.
So it's O'Fallon.
O'Fallon.
It's a local brewery from St. Louis.
Well, good on them. Give
Jacob,
them some props.
you did. Yeah, Jacob, you did good.
Thank
done good,
you
man.
very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for the beer,
Um,
Jacob.
It says we love beer on the bottle.
I love beer. I
we
like
do
beer.
love beer.
Okay,
We like
but
beer.
no,
To see
really.
the,
Here, I want to give them all the reps.
5.9%. That's not bad. That's a
There it
Yeah,
decent-
did we show all the bottles?
O'Fallon Dads. There it is.
Dad's Cookie Company is what it
Yeah,
says.
it is. It's good beer.
That's how you know it's good.
Alrighty, guys, we got
Some
a
of
good
that.
show ahead. Obviously, we're going to be liquored up here.
more of that.
But no, we got 2 reviews. This
We do.
is the
It's-
week.
It's the beginning of
Halloween. Happy Halloween!
Happy with an
Now-
emphasis on the happy.
Absolutely. And I do want to make a small minor note for anybody who has not caught our last show. I had to re-upload it today. I was talking to you all as the intro was rolling out.
There were some
YouTube
problems.
had a minor gripe from a certain NBC Universal. I'll just name drop. I don't care. Trying to block our Candyman review, saying that we used some footage that we weren't allowed to. However, it is protected under fair use. Obviously, I've refuted these copyright.
We get them all the time.
I get them
Yeah.
on every single
Yeah,
review I
it's nothing
post,
new.
and every single one of them I refute, and I always end up almost getting. I don't think this was the first one. Candyman was the first one
Where
that
they
I
didn't
actually had to
accept it, yeah.
appeal because they didn't accept it, and they didn't accept the appeal, so I had to take it down. So I reposted it, as well as last week's show. I had to repost it, which means we don't get any views. We had 1 million views on that video. Can you
Oh,
believe
man.
it? They ripped us off from
1
1 million
million.
views.
Yeah.
because
I couldn't believe
that
it.
video had the truth in it.
Exactly.
And NBC Universal did not like that we were speaking the
They
truth.
denied our truth. They denied
They
our
denied
truth.
our-
So what I
Speak
did,
truth to power.
and that's what I did. I re-edited the video.
I hate that phrase so much. I hate that phrase so much.
You know, everybody thought our phrase in our generation that sucked was YOLO. No, your truth, my truth. That whole entire saying, that is the crappiest phrase ever. Nothing's further from the truth. But
So,
no,
2 reviews.
I re-uploaded last week's episode and the review. I had to put up a nice banner covering the video and basically not use their video, but just basically saying, hey, thanks you two for sticking up for us.
Yeah.
Thanks but not thanks. And, screwing over NBC Universal. Those videos are up. You can watch our last week's show. It's available now. Just the reviews blocked out. Sorry. Hopefully these won't. So far they've been posted on YouTube, and I haven't gotten a copyright claim that'll block them.
I don't think anybody's really going to care much about Scooby-Doo from 2002. And then
Hey,
as far
that's
as
good Scooby-Doo from 2002.
Yeah.
Ooh, right.
And as far as the sequel to Venom goes, we've really not had a lot of problems, I think, from Sony in general anyways.
I mean,
so
I don't look. The last one that I had a bigger problem with was Promising Young Woman, and it
And that
ended
was
up-
Warner Brothers.
Yeah, and I got
Yeah.
that one passed, and so
Well,
oh well.
I got a big problem with Sony.
oh,
This movie that we're about to review.
no doubt. That is our first review. We promised it last week. Here is none other than yes, our review of Venom. Let there be carnage.
With over a decade of Marvel Studios crafting what is now the massively popular and successful Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's easy to forget just how bad movies based on Marvel characters used to be. Just in case people ever do start forgetting, however, Sony is around to remind us. While Marvel has regained the majority of their character film rights, Sony still holds the rights to one of their most iconic characters, Spider-Man, and any characters originating within the pages of Spider-Man comic books. And while Sony has struck success partnering with Disney and Marvel Studios to integrate Spider-Man himself into the MCU, other characters have not been so fortunate. Venom, Let There Be Carnage, released this weekend, and while a financial success, the movie reminds us all why we fear the day Sony may decide to pick up its toys and stop sharing Spider-Man with Disney. Directed by Anthony Serkis, the brilliant actor behind Gollum, brilliance in motion capture acting does not equate to brilliance in directing. Case in point, the Venom sequel. While the first film was cliché and lackluster, it offered up enough entertainment that I was willing to overlook its flaws for the hope of a better overall franchise. Well, Serkis has delivered the second outing, and it's more of the same bad, with less of the good. Starring Tom Hardy once again as Eddie Brock and the alien symbiote Venom, the sequel unleashes Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage, for the ultimate 90s nostalgia throwdown. And while diehard fans who grew up with Spider-Man in that time period may have a nerdgasm watching these two titans of Spider-Man villainy throw down, the movie doesn't offer anything of substance. Tom Hardy as Eddie is still entertaining, though the script doesn't give him much to work with. Hardy still proves he could be a solid Venom, if only put in the right hands, and much of his banter with Venom produces the only entertaining parts in the film. Harrelson on paper seemed like a perfect fit for the sociopathic Carnage, but is wasted in the film. With returning casts such as Hardy and Michelle Williams, and newcomers like Woody Harrelson and Naomi Harris, just like the first movie, the sequel is packed with talent, but wastes them all. Luckily, the film has a short runtime and gets straight to the point. Venom versus Carnage. Though even their fight is overly predictable. It may please those who care about nothing other than two CGI blobs having it out, but Venom Let There Be Carnage doesn't offer much to set itself apart from the generic Marvel films of pre-MCU days. So while superhero films have evolved, Sony is here to make sure we never forget the horrors that once were. I give Venom Let There Be Carnage 1.5 out of 4 stars.
Ooh, 1.5 out of 4 stars.
I gave the first one 2 stars, and I still
Yeah.
hold by that. And I think the first one was honestly better than this one. So I really couldn't, because I thought about doing 2 stars for this one, and I'm like, I can't. It's like this one doesn't improve on anything from the original. And in fact, at least the original, I think, sets up the characters better, even if there's not a lot of depth there, and sets up the story better. Whereas this one, normally, like, when I saw the movie's going to be 90 minutes, I was like, oh, this is great because it's not going to have a bunch of filler. It's just going to get straight to the point. But honestly, it doesn't have any, like, the 90 minutes is just...
I truly thought Anthony Serkis was going to do a great job. A small misspoke.
Maybe Anthony Serkis did direct this movie.
I told you.
Andy Serkis.
Anthony Serkis is real. He did the motion capture for Hannibal Lecter.
That's right. Well, and Anthony Serkis is really who Andy Serkis is before he turns into Carnage.
Oh.
See, Andy Serkis is Carnage.
I was drinking when I wrote that, so no.
Under the influence.
Writers, all writers drink and do drugs for creativity. So you know.
But no, I thought I agree.
One slip up.
One little small slip up. It was too late for you to come back, and although you did come back.
I did come back at like 1 a.m. I told Sean about that.
He had to get his phone.
I left my phone here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sitting there.
I get up and I start pinging my phone because I'm like, where's my phone at? I'm in my basement. I fell asleep watching Squid Game, which is really good, by the way. And I wake up at like 1:45, and I realize like I haven't had my phone since I got back to your house. So
did you do Find My Phone or whatever?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, and not only that, but I'm sitting here and I just wrapped up editing everything.
I texted Brandon and I'm like, are you awake?
Well, it was funny before I read your text though. I'm sitting there
pinging.
And I'm like, I just hear a ping and I'm like, did I accidentally hit my iPad? So then all of a sudden I look at my phone and I see a missed text. I was like, I bet you Keith left his phone here. Sure enough.
Yep. It was in here.
But no, it was funny
it's
because
okay. I used my iPad.
I had already texted you that I wanted to correct that, and we'll correct it for the interwebs later. Yeah. But no amount of correcting could help this film, truth be told. This film was god-awful. And like you said...
I don't know about god-awful,
I
did give it 1.5, even though I'm over here defending it.
I don't know why, because I'll tell you right now, like you said, it's a sequel. I expect much better.
You expected to do better, yeah.
It was a different director.
No, regression.
It really was.
Yeah.
And even with the fight, knowing what the fight was supposed to be about and how excited we were, and now I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. I expect this, and I'm totally okay with that. Spider-Man 3 gave us a better Venom than these 2 films. And I know people who will disagree with me, and I actually prefer Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3 over both of these Venom movies.
Well, I will agree that I like Spider-Man 3 as a movie better than the 2 Venom movies. I partially agree. I like the way the symbiote in Spider-Man 3 looks better than in these movies. I think they look too CGI in Venom's own movies. But we definitely have a way better Eddie with Tom Hardy than we did with Topher Grace.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hate Topher Grace.
Well,
I would agree with
even Topher Grace has since then said, I have no idea why they hired me for that role.
Well, I think he does well as Eddie Brock in terms of like some of the comedic relief. I think he's like when he's sitting there and he's like, talking to the police chief, and he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm dating
Eddie Brock
your daughter."
is supposed to be a loser, but he's not supposed to be this scrawny nerd like Peter Parker. He's kind of like the opposite side of the same coin. Yes, he's a loser, but he's still this bulky, like
he's not a loser. He's a screw up.
Yes.
There's
okay.
a difference.
I was gonna say I don't get loser from.
Yeah.
Well,
Eddie,
that's the term that
Tom.
Venom uses to put him down. When he's not really a loser, but he thinks of himself as a loser.
But
because he is, he screws up. So.
I mean, and I'll give you that. I don't think Topher Grace. Like, here's the thing: the reason why I say it was a better Venom was because, for one, we know the backstory now since Spider-Man 3 came out. More than a decade ago. That's crazy. But it's the fact that they shoehorned Venom into that movie. Mm-hmm. It wasn't supposed to be Venom in that film. It was mostly supposed to be
Sandman and Harry, and that was supposed to be the only two.
The fact that they shoehorned 3 villains for the arc that he has, it sucks because Venom is a better, I think, villain and central character to tell a full story on. Mm-hmm. However, with these movies being set apart to do that, it shows just why I think you have an MCU with Marvel Studios working the way it does, because Sony and obviously DC still have not been able to get the proper reins on these superhero films, and MCU is the only one that can do it.
Yeah, I feel like Spider-Man with Marvel is Tom Holland. I don't like him better than I liked Tobey Maguire.
Oh, I do, but I like the Sam Raimi movies better.
See, I think I'm the opposite. Like, I think the actor's better in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, but I like the Marvel Spider-Man movies.
Ooh,
I feel like they fit the momentum that the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe has created.
With that.
So I like that they are. I feel like they're part of the same world. I don't feel like.
But I think that's intentional.
Of course it is. But I give them props for that. It feels good. It feels like it fits. His relationship with Iron Man is unbelievable. It's great. I think it sets up so much more emotion than anything Tobey Maguire ever set up. But
I don't know
if these movies, I feel like if Marvel had a hold of Venom in terms of making it the way they want to without Sony's attachment, it would have been good.
Well, we see that in the. I don't want to give anything away.
Spoil anything.
Yeah.
But there is a crucial end-credit scene that I feel has Marvel written all over it.
Yes.
And I think that ultimately that gives me hope for what is to come with this character.
But it sucks that they're going to have to get to a third movie with Venom in it for it to actually be Venom.
Yes,
true.
And that sucks. The first movie gave me hope. This movie takes me kind of I've lost hope.
Step back.
Yeah, I've lost hope for it. Same thing with Zack Snyder. Like, Man of Steel gave me a little glimmer. Okay, they're only going to get better from here. No, they didn't. And this is the same way with Venom.
And it's one of those things, because like I said in my review, and I still stand by it, I do like Tom Hardy as Eddie. I think like him, the anxiety and the disheveled look and like his acting, I think is pretty good for that character. And granted, do I think it could be better? Yes, but I think with better direction, he would be, because, I mean, it's Tom Hardy. We already know he can act.
Yeah.
So I'm completely fine with him keeping the role, because I don't think he's what makes it bad. It's just they have a lot of talent, like Woody Harrelson, Michelle Williams, Naomi Harris, and none of these characters, especially in the sequel, like Michelle Williams felt like she had a purpose in the first movie, even if she wasn't utilized the best. Mm-hmm. In this one, it's like they're like, oh yeah, she's still a character, so we have to figure out a way to include her.
Yeah.
It's like they could have done everything they did in the movie without those characters.
Right. Well, they only set her up for a crucial plot point that only serves to, I guess, keep Eddie somewhat interested in being, fighting his moral battle.
Yeah.
But really, even then,
really, she's only there to bail him out of jail, and that's it.
More or less.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And they give him something.
They could have done that with anybody. Like, it didn't have to be her.
But it's to give him some hope of. But that's the thing. They make it seem like you still want him to fight for her and that relationship. But it's like, I just don't understand the point of her sticking around. They kind of make her just a flat character who's just there to either bail him out.
Babysitter.
They throw her in there for She-Venom.
Yeah,
briefly.
Yes, exactly.
Again, they did it in the first one. It's like, why do every movie has to have
and then, of
her?
course, in this one, they overlook the fact. It's like, okay, well, now in this one, we'll make him hug. Because they're right in front of, her fiance. Yeah. But I just thought again, all the character arcs fell flat. The plot fell flat. I mean, I really, truly thought, again, same problem as I had with the first one. It starts out not strong, but well enough to keep me motivated and interested in what's coming next. And then they literally just get to about the midway point and say, we've introduced the characters, we've sort of introduced their motives, let's just get to the final fight.
Yeah.
And then all the crap that happens in between is completely... It's not even about it being pointless. It's just that, okay, it's so contrived.
It doesn't lead to anything,
just to get
really.
to, like you said in the review, the blobs can fight. Mm-hmm. And even the blobs fighting wasn't that entertaining.
That's what it looks like on screen. And it's like...
Yep. Too up close.
I think of like what the Russos did with like Doctor Strange and Endgame and Infinity War, or what Taika Waititi's done with Thor, or even James Gunn with Guardians of the Galaxies, and the fight choreographies and all those movies. Like the spectacle is so awesome.
Shang-Chi.
The
whole entire the bus fight was beautifully choreographed.
Thinking about all of those fights, and then in the Venom movies, they don't even do anything cool with these creatures that you can almost do anything with. They just have them like span out and engulf each other, and
and that's almost part of the problem.
Just this whirling mess.
It's like they have so many different possibilities. They just try to cram a bunch of little things in there to make this ridiculous outcome that it's like, okay, this is literally what I felt like as a 5-year-old playing with the plastic toys, and I envisioned, and it's like,
just like,
exactly, and it's like
in the comic books, Venom is always like turning the appendages into axes and swords and
Carnage does that
balls
once.
with spikes on them, and Carnage does that once, very very briefly in the prison escape, where he turns one of his arms into an axe.
He turns into a tornado.
Yeah, and that was the stupidest.
Dumb.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't know what he's doing here.
Terrible.
Yeah, that was really stupid.
I was like, where the hell did this come from?
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere. I mean, I don't know. It's like it was just out of place.
He's Carnage. He can do whatever he wants.
I guess so.
You should know.
Let him be.
He's Carnage.
Let there be Carnage.
Let there be.
He is
Which,
Carnage.
I told Keith, I said that line at the end,
Carnage,
would have been great if they would have never said his name to begin with.
Yeah.
Or never even named the character.
By the time he
just let him say, "Let there be Carnage,"
right.
and then you're like, "Oh, so that's going to be his name."
I mean, already anytime a character like says the title of the movie, it's kind of hokey.
Yes.
But the fact that they had
we have our good buddy Logan who agrees with that.
But anytime,
except for Lord of the Rings,
because they don't name drop like Lord of the Rings, the two towers. They mention the two towers because they're a thing. Yeah.
Yes.
But in this, when he's like, "Let there be Carnage," it's like, it could have sounded badass, but the fact that you've already said Carnage 5 times, hinting at who you are,
Well, and not only that, but
he gives himself the name. He's
yes,
like,
exactly. This was
Meet
part
Carnage.
of the And I'm like, what? Well, I was like, where did you just randomly pull that out of your ass? Not to mention, you also had Venom.
He's Carnage. He said it 5 times.
And I told
pull
you
whatever
this.
he wants out of there.
But I mentioned this to Keith about the first film, and again, I know you kind of defended it, which is fine.
I defend that they're sentient, not that they still have to learn.
Like I hated the scene where he jumps in I guess it's what city are they in? San Francisco? It's not the
Golden Gate Bridge.
Okay,
San Francisco,
but he jumps in. That's the ocean. He's swimming and he gets to this buoy or whatever, and he jumps up there, and Venom finally comes out and reveals himself to Tom Hardy, and he goes, "I'm Venom," and I'm just like, how did you come up with that? Like, why are you Venom?
Right.
Like, where does this come? I know, but okay, but so on their planet Flafluga, they're named Venom and Carnage, and like they just come out of nowhere
and scream, and
I don't know. To me, again,
they come from a foreign world, but they have English names,
right? And they speak English, exactly.
Well, it's the same. The aliens and Guardians of the Galaxy, though, they do give them more alien names. So
not only that, but Marvel does such a. This is the differentiator.
I don't think they have English names until they fuse with someone on Earth.
Right,
they have their own alien name,
which is fine. But again, you have to build that into the story.
Yeah. He just says, "I am
explain."
Venom.
And for you to make a connection as an audience to actually think that it's not so out of the realm of possibility. Again, as a filmmaker, you're setting the rules at which this world's got to follow. And when you go beyond and cross the line of believability, then all of the structure in which your story is being held up by fall down. And I think that this movie does that terribly. Both of them do.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And this one didn't do itself any favors by just continuing more of the same and ultimately falling flat in the end. I mean, you had an entire stupid scene where he's at a rave and he's wearing glow sticks.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is
kind of
straight
funny.
I thought it was
up.
funny too.
And it was. There's nothing wrong with the humor behind it, but as far as the narrative purpose it serves, it's literally more relevant to just social causes today than ultimately what it felt like was a throwback to like early 2000s superhero films, like a Sam Raimi Spider-Man. And I'm like, okay, this is what I expect from back then.
Don't do that. Sam Raimi Spider-Man was better than the rave scene.
It definitely
except
had
for
way
except
better
for
taste.
Spider-Man 3
Dancing
when he
down the
danced
street.
Yeah.
The Saturday Night Fever.
Okay,
Saturday Night Fever.
I'm
off
even gonna.
is bad.
Look. I rewatched Spider-Man.
It's not
3.
rave bad, but it's bad.
It's bad, but
Not. Yeah.
I think that having watched it almost 15 years, I guess, after its release, I will say this about that scene.
It's funny.
There's only one part about it that I thought was terrible, which I thought carried into the next scene of the movie, which happens to be him dancing in the bar and they do like a jazz number.
Yeah,
that
that's
was
bad.
a little far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the scene of him going down the street and then him dancing and like everybody's looking at him ridiculous, I'm like, the point is comedy.
Yeah.
It is funny. So I don't know. I'm giving Sam Raimi some leeway there.
I have
as well.
problems with Spider-Man 3. That wasn't a huge one of it, but yeah, the jazz dance scene and Topher Grace in the church. Please kill Peter Parker. That was the dumbest line I'd ever heard.
Well, there was plenty of dumb lines in this movie too.
Yeah,
So
there is. There were a
Yeah.
lot of dumb lines in this movie. A lot of things that just never predictable too. Like there's one point where like the cops like running up the church to like up store, and Sean's like, "Where's he going?" And I said, "As like the bell tower," because
the bell tower. That's where it goes.
because I knew.
Well,
It's like,
oh my gosh. Okay, so here's what I did in the movie. I was bored. So when the bell starts ringing, I started timing how many seconds it took before it rang again.
Yeah.
It was different every time.
Of course.
Which
Yeah.
is just impossible.
Yeah.
But the bell would go dong, and it would be like 23 seconds before
Until
it
they
would hit,
needed
before
another
it would
one.
hit again. And it would only hit with the music that was going on in the
Yeah.
film.
And with the scene playing out a certain way.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it was really just stupid. If they punched each other at a certain time, it'd go dong when they
It's
hit
just-
each other. It was like this. I just couldn't get past that. I was like, wait a minute, now this bell
it was
is
just-
defying.
Because when you've seen
all
movies
physics.
like Baby Driver and other movies that synchronize those things, or even freaking Tenet.
Well, even
not
Yeah.
Tenet.
Spider-Man 3, because he's in the
Spider-Man
bell
3.
tower when he that's actually straight from the comics. Like in the comics, Peter tears Venom off originally in a church that Eddie's praying in, and with the bell tower, and it drips down on him. And Sam Raimi recreated that in the movie. So when he's in the church in this movie and Let There Be Carnage, and they're going up the thing, I'm like, their weakness is sound. They're going to the bell tower because we haven't seen that already before.
And I'm not gonna lie, the one thing I'll give it credit for in that scene is I actually did like is he freaking shoots his Venom web, whatever it is, or even I think maybe Carnage does it, but rips the
the thing, which makes sense. Yeah.
to keep it from ringing. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
okay, that
Why
actually
didn't you just do that at the start?
exactly.
Yeah,
Well, easier said
Yeah.
than done.
Yeah.
It's like, so no, I agree with you though, Sean. It's like when you have seen movies that have taken into account, I mean, that's the problem with so much of this film is it tried to rely heavily on visual effects to just be the wow factor.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we've seen plenty of these movies now in a completely different universe that actually stack up when it comes to character development and actually making me care about. I mean, I think you even brought up a quote recently about Marvel, and it's like everybody wants to compare them to theme park
I forget the
rides.
name of the movie critic. He was defending because like with Dennis Villeneuve recently coming out and talking trash about Marvel, and then of course Scorsese had done in the past. He had just said that there's a lot of people give flack to Marvel. But the fact is that the reason they're so popular is because when you look at blockbusters in the past, like what Marvel movies were made before, or even movies like Transformers, and it's like they're terrible. And it's like Marvel actually takes blockbusters and makes them good.
Right.
And it's like not everything has to be, the Academy Award winning film. It's like Marvel makes good blockbusters,
Right.
and so people like them.
Yep.
So
And I think we would all agree here that it's like, yeah, of course, we enjoy and look forward to other blockbusters of different ilks, not just the Marvel universe.
when they're good, yeah.
Because I understand the whole Dennis Villeneuve comment of cut, copy, paste. I get it. But at the same time, while I am looking forward to the next Marvel movie because they have been equally good.
I just think it's funny that Villeneuve would say that when he's doing a remake.
Yeah,
that's
true. Dude is a remake.
Yeah. Well, I guess you would argue it's not copy-paste.
Not as it only just a remake, but it's also based on a book. So I know it's changing mediums, but you're still taking the story from the book, copying and pasting. I
don't know.
It's different. I know it's way different, but still, it's it's not an original idea.
I understand people arguing on behalf of we want originality, but that's been the age-old, of course we do. But then there's also times where original works come out, especially in the indie scene. I mean, we've repped on the show coming out soon. Lamb is something that's really bizarre and weird. Yeah. And it doesn't always have to be bizarre and weird. French Dispatch is coming out at the end of the month.
Well, it's like, Wes Anderson. It's still probably going to be a little bizarre.
Well, of course. But I'm just saying.
In a good, exactly.
In a good way.
Right.
He's
what we go to see his films for.
Exactly. Yes. He consistently delivers, and we know that he has original works. So they're still out there, and people may want those, but you have to go and support them. Yeah. And in the meantime, we also know that big blockbusters like these, like Marvel films and Venom, are going to help spur on what comes next. But I guess we got one more movie to review this week.
Our Halloween movie review to go through.
I was going to say, we got to move right along.
Go for it.
Let's get into, our review of Scooby-Doo.
Trick or treat, it's a happy Halloween. That's right, the Halloween movie reviews are back. And as we enter October and prepare for frights, the Red Moon crew realizes, hey, Halloween is more than just scares. So this year we devote our reviews to family-friendly films for the season, so that we can all have a happy Halloween. I have always had a macabre sense of humor, and blending spooky with fun has often created some of the most memorable films and shows through the years. But none more iconic than the show about a group of teenagers and their dog, who roam the country solving the spookiest mysteries around. Yes, I of course speak of Scooby-Doo. The characters are still the most iconic mystery-solving ghost hunting team in pop culture, and even received a new animated film last year. But we aren't reviewing that. Oh no, we are kicking off our Happy Halloween celebration with the first live-action feature-length film based off of the show. I speak of 2002's Scooby-Doo. Starring Freddie Prinze Jr. as, Freddy, Sarah Michelle Gellar as Daphne, Linda Cardellini as Velma, Matthew Lillard as Shaggy, and Neil Fanning voicing Scooby-Doo, the live-action adaptation serves as a love letter to the series while also spoofing the original show and themes. Written by James Gunn and directed by Raja Gosnell, Scooby-Doo was panned by critics upon release, yet has a cult following and is generally considered by fans as massively underrated. And I honestly feel they are partially justified in this belief. No, Scooby-Doo is not the best made film. Its CGI is terrible, even for 2002. The writing and dialogue is often terrible as well, and overall production value is poor. The movie looks and feels like a generic early 2000s VH1 production. But this is also a lot of its charm. Something about the movie still works. Something has still drawn fans to it despite it being universally panned. And it just might be the film does have a lot of heart and was obviously written by someone who loves the characters. The film is full of innuendos and homages to the original show that those adults who grew up watching it will laugh, while still being tame enough for kiddos. With allusions to Shaggy and Scooby being potheads and each actor playing over-the-top caricatures of their roles, the movie honestly does know its source material and is fun because of it. Each cast member goes all in, with much of the cast chewing the scenery and Matthew Lillard being such a standout as Shaggy that he would go on to become the official voice actor of the character. Where the film falls flat, I feel, is in how the humor is handled. Something tells me that if James Gunn had directed his own script, we would have seen a wildly different movie. Sometimes knowing how to deliver a line or display something visually goes a long way towards taking the off-kilter story and making it something brilliantly twisted instead of goofy. For what it's worth, Scooby-Doo will make the kids happy as Mystery Inc. tackles the spooky island mystery and saves the world. It may make most adults groan, but there is some brilliance hidden amongst the terrible execution. Enough to please the hardcore fans alongside the kiddos too. I give Scooby-Doo 2 out of 4 stars.
What? Scooby-Doo is better than Venom? Let there be carnage?
Yes.
How is
for what it was supposed to be, yes.
It's like we're going to have to compare the two because it's like we just reviewed them on the same show. and we gave it a better score.
One's a movie made for kids, even though it does have some questionable moments, but they're all innuendos that kind of go over the head, so I can forgive it of that. But yeah, one's mainly a kids movie that's goofy and silly, but still, you could tell, like I said, you could tell James Gunn is a fan of the characters. A lot of what the movie is spoofing.
I was shocked to find out it was written by James Gunn.
Yeah,
I was.
I could tell watching the movie and the humor it's going for. I was like, I could easily see this movie being something way better if he had actually directed it. Because the director they got, I told you, I looked her up or him up. I don't know. Raja, yeah. And I noticed some of the other things they had directed were like Beverly Hills Chihuahua, like more than one of those movies. So I was like, yeah, that told me everything I needed. They had probably a script that was maybe a little bit more adult than Warner Brothers wanted from James Gunn. So they're like, here, you direct this and turn it into a more kid-friendly movie. Because there's definitely like the satire there. Like, I mean, even the whole like the Scrappy-Doo thing being the point that everybody hated Scrappy-Doo, and like James Gunn makes fun of that in the movie. There's a lot of moments that I really feel he gets the characters and makes the spoof off of that. And the actors definitely chew the scenery. Like, I mean, Freddie Prinze Jr. cracks me up. Yeah. Because he does just play this completely oblivious, ignorant character.
Yeah, I know.
And it's just...
But he still has redeeming qualities.
Yes,
Each one has redeeming qualities, which I like.
Like I said, Matthew Lillard was so good that he ended up becoming the official voice actor for that character after the original retired. So there's definitely merit to some of it. It's just not the best done.
I would second that.
Him and Sarah Michelle Gellar are the only... to me, they were the two that fit the cartoon characters the best. But this movie was definitely, it's kind of like the Austin Powers of Halloween movies, in my opinion.
That's a great, or kids Halloween movie.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It is great okay analysis to watch with the family. I did not revisit this film with my kids present, but after watching it and kind of refreshing my memory, because I hadn't seen it since it came out.
Well, you want to make sure.
I would be fine with.
You have to make sure that the innuendos are only innuendos.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're nothing that my children would get anything from. So it's not like anything like that.
The Mary Jane. Like, my name's Mary Jane. That's like my favorite name.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it does. It fits. It fits the cartoon. It has the same. It has the same heart that the cartoon has, but I've never been like a huge Scooby-Doo cartoon fan.
Same.
So it's nothing. It's not like nostalgic or anything that stands out to me. But I mean, just as a film on its own, it wasn't bad.
It struck the perfect nerve for just kind of going back to realizing when it came out, and also, like, I mean, the innuendo and the way it was written. For one, it does let me know James Gunn is a fan of not only the source material, but he does faithful adaptations of things that I think he's hired to do. Mm-hmm. And I think he wants to do his best job in presenting the material for whatever film
so far, the only time he's let me down has been with Suicide Squad. So,
well, true.
I mean, and you know,
and it's not really because of the characters, more so the movie and the plot than anything. Exactly. I mean, the characters.
He definitely does dysfunctional families very well, like Scooby-Doo, Guardians, Suicide Squad. He definitely does dysfunctional like family.
It has that quirky sense of, not only quirky sense of humor, but odd.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, not being a fan of Scooby-Doo, I actually did find myself as an adult giving it a pass for some of the more ridiculous moments and some of the terrible CGI.
The CGI
is really bad.
Even for 2000,
there's moments where it looks like clay.
Yes,
like it's really bad.
For the year it came out, it's still atrocious.
Well, I told Keith this is the same year Two Towers came out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because 2002. If
only they would have got Weta Digital to do that.
Well, I compared it, to be more fair, because Lord of the Rings was above the CGI that any movie at that time had.
Absolutely.
So I compared it to the prequel Star Wars trilogy, because that was the same time frame, and this was worse. This was worse than Jar Jar. This was worse than Jar Jar.
I honestly, I put this other than Scooby. Scooby's not
Jar Jar
bad.
came out in '99.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. It's like when Scooby jumps up into his arms.
Yeah.
You can see the bottom of. You can see his arms, and it's like if he was laying there, you wouldn't be able to see it. It's that bad. He's not even like. They're not even touching.
Well, and I'll give.
Whereas Gollum, when he's grabbing Frodo's cloak,
the freaking clothes move. Like, how do you make a shirt do that?
Anthony Serkis is doing that.
Anthony Serkis.
Yeah, he knows
Anthony Serkis.
He was a genius.
But
no,
genius.
I'll give them credit on
Hannibal
Scooby-Doo.
Leatherface.
I thought Scooby-Doo was somewhat decent for what they were trying to do. But I think the monsters they had in the film honestly reminded me of Reptile from Mortal Kombat. And the original, and that was like 1995.
Yeah, I see that.
So that was really bad.
It reminded me of Monsters, Inc.
Yes.
Actually, Monsters
Actually,
Inc.
look better.
But no, I mean, ultimately, for not being such a huge fan of the cartoon, but also this was a movie that actually did make me laugh out loud as an adult, and there were just certain things that either the characters did or the innuendos that they played off of that made me genuinely laugh.
We did the poll on which movies we would review, and I mean, this one did win one of the 4 spots, but it was the lowest ranked, which is why we started first. And honestly, as like that entry into Halloween, because yes, it deals with ghosts and monsters, but it's not as deeply Halloween as the rest of them are.
Yes.
So it's kind of, I think, a decent way to kind of start the season and get you into like the spooky
break the
mood
ice.
with Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
But I definitely think what we review next from here on out.
What is our next movie review?
Well, if we're going in order, it'll be Ernest directly next, which I'm excited about.
I've never seen this film.
Ernest, okay,
Oh,
this is
God.
here's what I was going to say. All of the movie, this is definitely, in my opinion, and we'll get to the official reviews, but in my opinion, Scooby-Doo is definitely the weakest of the 4 we have. So,
Wow.
So we're just going to go up from here.
Now, here's the thing. Not having the nostalgia of Ernest when I grew up, because I didn't really have it of this. I'll be honest. I forgot a lot of
Ernest
Scooby-Doo.
doesn't have problems, because it does.
But is it going to be something that I'm going to laugh at as much as I did at Scooby-Doo? Because Scooby-Doo was much more mainstream than Ernest.
I'm not going to promise anything.
Have
but
you ever seen any of the Ernest movies?
Yes, and I'm not a huge fan of Jim. I like what Jim Varney did. I know he's got a certain brand of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of Ernest. I just never
Okay.
was.
And you may not. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, personally, I think Ernest is a funnier movie. Like, Ernest Scared Stupid is funnier than
it's
Scooby-Doo.
funny.
I mean, it makes I die.
I know
It
the
has
whole.
its
I
own.
know that movie by heart. It's so
But just
funny.
And I'm looking forward to it.
So-
I'm looking forward to kind of dipping my toe into
It's
something
ridiculous,
I'm really not a
but
fan
it's
of.
a movie unlike Scooby-Doo, where I feel like James Gunn had one idea and the director had another. I feel like Ernest Scared Stupid is a movie that knows what it is.
Yeah.
So it's like the stupidity is funny
All
because
of his
it
movies are like that,
embraces.
yes.
It's like we know we're being over the top and stupid.
But is it over the top in a slapstick way? Because I'm not a fan of that.
Not like I wouldn't say like
that's always
not Three
been-
Stooges slapstick,
No.
but yes, there is slapstick.
Yes,
So
Because that's always what that's.
there is a lot of wit too. There is a lot of witty
Okay.
dialogue.
Because
so.
of all the memories I
Yes.
have,
I mean, his changing of character is so freaking. It's so freaking good.
I
Like,
mean, of all
of the little characters that he
of the
plays.
the very few memories I have of Ernest, that's just my only memory is that it's slapstick.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it, but that is our next movie review for Halloween. But
we have
Scooby-Doo.
that one, Casper, and then number 1, Brandon
Adam's
hates it, Adam's
Family.
Family.
I'm
That's
not
the one
looking
I'm looking
forward
forward to the most.
I do love
so
that movie.
I love Adam's
Yeah.
Family.
I'm just not that. Okay, another one. I'm more looking forward to Ernest than I am Adam's Family.
Oh man.
Now,
I've
see,
never liked Adam's
Scooby-Doo
Family.
and Casper are the two that Scooby-Doo is the bottom, but Casper
I love
never
Casper.
really liked Casper.
I like for being a live action, and again, I'm gonna bring this up.
I like
'cause
them all,
think,
so
I think
can't
this,
complain.
This kind of makes me happy with the choices that thankfully our audience who
They chose. They voted, yeah.
But
We had a big turnout. Like they had a lot of votes.
But one of the things that these films all had in common, and I think that a lot of films over the last, at least definitely the last decade, has lost, is that these had the ability to attract both kids and adults.
Yeah.
Sort of the kind of secret sauce that Pixar has blended together, but there was also that innuendo that never went overboard that I think nowadays they either have to, it's got to be so subtle that it's just not funny, or it's got to be so overt that it's over the top and it's like, okay, that's crass.
Honestly,
like that's too much for a kid. And I feel like these movies in this time period from the 90s literally up through the middle of the 2000s, obviously our childhood, what we grew up with was a time where I think they played that very fine line very well.
They appealed to kids, but they still had humor that would appeal to adults that went over kids' heads. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
The difference though between like Ernest and I feel like Ernest and the Addams Family are the two that walk that line the best. But the thing is like Ernest doesn't have Addams Family. When you get to Gomez and Morticia, they have so much like sexual banter back and forth.
They have great chemistry.
Yes,
but
they have good chemistry. But I mean, he talks
about
about he's like, I'm gonna take you and cover you in roses and do that. And it's like, yeah. So there's that little bit of that adult innuendo, but with Ernest, you don't have any of that. The adult innuendo or the stuff that the adults get is more Andy Griffith adult stuff than anything. Like there's things that he says that you'll die laughing, and then you'll look at it'll cut to the kids' faces, and they're just like, anyway, let's just get on our bikes and go after it. Like, it's like they don't get what he's saying. Right. It's only for the adults. You can tell that in those scenes.
They obviously draw attention
Adam's
to it.
family does kind of walk that line a little bit more with some of the... I feel
like, definitely, I think Ernest is probably the most kid-friendly out of all of them, for sure. I agree with that. And then maybe Adam's family. It's been a while.
It's been a long time since I've seen Casper.
Casper, I know, has a few curse words because I do remember like his uncles.
But the ghosts are the same way. The ghosts definitely have not only innuendo, but they definitely have.
That's what I'm saying. I do know that. I just know that most of them were fairly mild. I do remember like there being a little bit more like cuss words in Casper than some of the others.
Well, and even
but
just
other than that,
the content as well. What I think too is also an issue that we have with our culture, and this is a kind of a weird thing, is we've kind of flipped upside down what I think we should center on with regards to central topics of that may be too serious for kids, but you kind of have to start feeding them at a little age to let them know it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to wonder, and like something like Casper, you do kind of think as a kids film. It's questioning what mortality is and existence.
When he talks about how he died, it's dark.
Well,
we'll get there.
We'll get there. But also, I don't want to dive into it, but now you have, I think, and I don't want to get political. I'm not going to go that route. You have other things that are focused on in today's films, or maybe are too. They make too kid friendly. That you can't really grasp what it is they're trying to go for. They try to be too. I don't want to say even innocent. They try to be too like tiptoey. They tiptoe around certain subjects without what I think like when you talk about Fox and the Hound, or even Bambi, when you watch about these kids films that our parents grew up with, and they see those, you're talking about something that's I think even more. I wouldn't say terrifying, but something that puts things in perspective a little bit more than just a kid-friendly film. And I don't think you either have two extremes these days where they go way overboard and it's too far and it shouldn't be a kids' film, or they just don't entertain that thought at all. They try to just be something stupid.
Movies definitely are not made the same today, and I mean they may not even get made at all here soon. So I mean,
perfect segue, Keith. Oh my gosh, that's right. Let's roll into our headlines. Let's do it, guys.
Oh my goodness. We got some nice headlines this week.
Yeah. Sorry.
Wow.
I just stopped the scatting and I thought I'd sing.
Hollywood's
going to go Evanescence on us for a second there.
Wake me up inside. Somebody save me.
What was... I did rewatch the first Spider-Man after we got home from Venom because I wanted to.
Oh, that has a song.
And I forget is it the
Simple
Hoobastank
Plan
song?
Oh no, it is Hoobastank.
Yeah. And I forget because I remember as soon as the credits started rolling, that song came up. I started dying because it'd been so long since I'd seen that movie, I'd forgotten. And I was like,
first Spider-Man movie?
Yes, the credits.
I think the credits.
Hoobastank was a band back then.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that was 2001.
2002.
Or 2002.
It was the summer of 2002.
Same year as
Scooby-Doo.
And look at the CGI, way better.
Yeah, true. But no,
even in the first Spider-Man, there's some compared to today, like there's some moments with him and Green Goblin that I was like, ooh, that back then I didn't think it looked bad, but it definitely sticks out.
No, absolutely.
Still better than Scooby-Doo.
Which before we go on to the headline you just referenced, I just real quick want to mention this one. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, because really there's been nothing disclosed. But the lawsuit between ScarJo and Disney has settled.
Yep.
They settled out of court. They made, they shook hands.
Well,
they said,
"Of course, Disney did.
Of course." Well, and hey, of course, ScarJo did. There have to be two parties that agree at the end of the day.
Because again, I never thought she was being greedy. She just wanted, originally she just wanted them to restructure her contract. So I think she was always happy to meet them at the table and settle something. It's just funny that after basically kind of trashing her and be like, well, she made $20 million, Disney was like, all right, let's fix this.
But she did too. I mean, not only she and maybe in defense of herself, but at the end of the day, when you're in defense of yourself that way, you would make it makes it sound like, oh, well, I'm never going to come to the table and agree with them because, they screwed me over that
But
bad.
she had never said that.
She didn't, but I'm just saying that's the way it's perceived. So
I never got that. I'm just saying.
Look, I never got that from Disney either. I never got that Disney was just trashing her because they didn't want to work with her again. They were both basically picking their sides of the
throw her
fence
to make themselves look better, which of course is what you're going to do.
But fans took her side.
Exactly.
And that's why they caved.
Yep. That's exactly what it was.
They don't want any bad publicity.
That's right.
Yep.
And they did. They have the deeper pockets.
Well,
but obviously they both came to a deal to settle and say, "Hey, looking forward to Tower of Terror.
Yeah.
Let's move on with future projects."
I'm excited for that one. That's actually something I've wanted to see them remake for a long time, so I'm hoping it's good. But I do think it speaks to something deeper because part of the issue she had was, of course, the percentage from streaming since she was contracted for theaters, and that's also one of the issues that all these production crews are having as far as going on strike. It's part of it, not all of it. So I do think it's interesting that Disney, Bob Chapek came out and said, yeah, we need to find a different way to pay people with streaming, and then they settled with ScarJo, and now we have a possible strike going on because of the same issues.
Yes, exactly, and that's what we're going to talk about now. Our big headline for this week is that IATSE, not Yahtzee, IATSE.
And what does that mean, Brandon?
I need to pull up the article to
I'll-
read it. Do you have it?
I'll pull it. I have it up. Yes.
I'm doing a little bit here, so I didn't have the chance to pull up an article.
The International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees.
Wow.
That's what IATSE stands for. Basically, it's the production crew, the little people that
below the line.
The people whose names you don't even see in the credits a lot of times are doing all the work. They were working before the pandemic 14-hour days. Sometimes they didn't even get days off. They said during the pandemic, they had settled to be able to only work 10-hour days. And then as soon as the pandemic was over, and this is part of their gripe, is because Hollywood's still touting, it's still the pandemic, box office numbers are pandemic numbers, yet they've said in Hollywood itself, despite what they say, they have been forced to go back to working 14-hour days, even though they're claiming the pandemic's over. But on set, the pandemic's not, or they claim the pandemic's not over, but on set, Hollywood's saying, oh no, it's over, you all have to work 14-hour days. And that's one of their gripes, is they're tired of working long days like that. They said it's not necessary. We can work shorter days.
They don't get proper breaks for meals.
They don't get meal breaks. They don't get a lot. Part of it was the streaming residuals. They didn't know how do they get paid based off of that, because they're not getting anything off of that.
Well, and I wanted to bring up another acronym because we just love acronyms in Hollywood.
This is the production company.
This is I would say AMPTP, which stands for the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. Now, here's the thing. To try to put it as basic as possible, and actually I do want to put I'm going to update our headlines after the show is posted to include this from the Hollywood Reporter. They did a really good job of breaking this down and who this is going to affect, and really those that it's not going to. So when it comes to above the line and below the line, like you said, are more the workers who are the day-to-day on a production set, who are considered, I would say, in the crudest way possible, replaceable.
Yes.
And you may not understand exactly who that is. That could be anybody from a production assistant, but all the way up to an editor, someone who is a makeup artist, people who are showing up on the set day in and day out to help the production finish. But ultimately, after the production is done, their job is done. When you talk about above the line, you're talking about producers, EPs, executive producers, directors, the main cast, so not your B-roll, but ultimately your A-roll cast.
The ones that still have to promote the film even after filming's
done.
done.
Your A-list actors that you're talking about. And you're literally in a situation
basically, if you get an Oscar for it, that's a little bit more above the line. If you get seen on TV, actually aired winning your Oscar, you're probably above the line.
Yeah. But ultimately, even then, I think
there are some that are. I mean, the Oscars do award
cinematographers are not considered above the line.
Yeah, they do award below the line people. I didn't mean only, but the big awards, the ones everybody cares about.
I was going to say, and I think obviously these variations mix depending on the set, depending on the studio. If it's a huge, this is one thing that I found interesting in the Hollywood Reporter article when they broke it down. Ultimately, it's like obviously you have these huge big budget productions with all these production studios, and then you also have you have reality TV, you have straight to video releases or straight to streaming. All of these different categories and all of these different groups, or you would say guilds, come together to create certain cases in the below the line or the below the line union members. They create guilds that create IATSE. Whereas your Directors Guild, your SAG, they're all separate. They're bigger guilds of union members that have their own union.
Yep.
And the AMPTP is kind of I would say, a board that comes together to say, we're working with we have our hands, and our ultimate goal is to work with all of these different unions and to get them to all come to some common agreements in which we can all create a contract and work together to create a production. And so you have the different huge studios, Warner Brothers, Universal, all these different big heads.
They're represented
represented by AMPTP.
Yeah, because it's basically like the producer, kind of a producer. It encompasses more.
It encompasses more, but they do work. They work with the Directors Guild, SAG, and IATSE.
Which the Directors Guild has actually come out in support of IATSE. They've said that they also urge the AMPTP to come to an agreement. And there has not been a strike announced yet. They voted on giving the president the authority to strike.
Yep.
So he now and it was a huge turnout.
98%.
Yeah, 98%, and 90% of members showed up. So 90% of members voted 98% to give him the authority to strike. And what he said is he's going to approach the AMPTP first to try to make an agreement and say, okay, because he said he's already let the president of the AMTP know how the vote turned out. So they already know that they
saw
can strike.
It played out in real time on social media.
So what he's going to do is go to the table, say, all right, you know that if we're not happy, we're going to strike, and see what agreement they can come to. If they don't come to agreement, there will be a strike.
I don't know if you mentioned earlier or not, but it's 60,000 plus employees
for IATSE.
That could potentially strike. Yeah.
Right. And I was going to say, now when you talk about that, that's kind of the bigger question here is, what does this affect? And again, that's where in question what it really affects are those who are in production right now that have IATSE members. Now, even then, IATSE is much bigger than those 60,000 when you include all the different guilds across the U.S. and Canada. Yeah. That's who it represents. And from my understanding in reading the details, this ultimately affects certain ones that had 2 agreements that just expired in September. And these agreements were what the AMPTP and IATSE agreed to. And those agreements expired. One was called the Hollywood Basic Agreement, and the other one was called the Local Area Agreement. One expired early in September. The other one expired on September 30th, which is why they held the vote to see if they wanted to strike. The point is that once these contracts, which were the agreements, expired, that was when the IATSE union members had the leverage to create a new contract with the AMPTP. And the whole point was to leverage that ability to create an agreement that would help them out in the end and get them the things that they've so-called said they're looking for.
Right.
The better hours, so less hours on set, actual meal breaks, and even what they're talking about, health benefits. A working wage is what they consider or what they call out. Now, granted, all of these details I'm sure are written out somewhere.
Oh yeah,
in
finer detail.
In finer detail, and here's the question: who knows if what they're asking for they're biting off more than they can chew? But they've even said with the voting power they have, well, now the ball's in PTP's court, and what they're ultimately, hopefully, fighting for is that if they don't get these and they do strike, then that's going to be 60,000 people that Hollywood partners with that will walk off set in TV and in film. So some of your major studios that have films in production right now could cease production because they either have to find replacements for these IATSE union members or they just can't go on.
Yeah.